think you still...
No, just because they can't find a replacement. Okay, so in the Catholic Church, somebody posted...
Free speech goes on, so it turns out that your administrators are a bunch of hacks. Crybaby wusses who only care about the melting snowflakes, who didn't even have balls to show up, by the way. We got 35 people, 35 security people for little old me. No, not even any protesters, just for me, because of my jujitsu skills and my massive 5'9", 165 Jewish frame. Okay, so I want to start. I come bearing gifts, particularly for the social justice warriors. So I keep hearing that you fellas, that you party people, that you want to. You're wearing around these safety pins. I brought a whole pack just for you. And then to accompany those, I brought the diapers you ought to be wearing. Self-indulgent, pathetic children who can't handle anybody who has an opposing point of view. Yeah, you're real strong. You're real tough. You're so strong and so tough, you have to stand behind the security and the police officers that you're bashing every single day. I promise you, in the privacy of their own homes, every member of that security team and every member of the police force is in agreement with me, not the people who they're protecting from my supposed free speech threat. Yep. And a quick note about all the protests that are taking place across the country, just as a preliminary. A lot of protests taking place about Donald Trump. These people are idiots, okay? I didn't vote for Trump for reasons both moral and political, but you can keep whining about reality like privileged snowflakes, but you're going to melt in the sun of the real world. Donald Trump does not give two shits about what you think. He's going to bathe in your salty tears. Okay, now, on to more important matters. Today we're going to take apart 3 terms. We're going to do it really quickly because now we've been time compressed, and I want to make sure that Christina, who was kind enough to cede the podium to me in this ridiculous situation, I want to make sure that Christina has the capacity and the time to speak. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about social justice, white privilege, and safe spaces. Okay, so first of all, social justice. So back in May, Milo spoke at this university, and the SJW shut down his event by storming the stage and screaming obscenities and threatening violence. And the Reverend Dennis Holtschneider sent a letter to the students the following day that said universities welcome speakers and give their ideas a respectful hearing, and then respond with additional speech countering the ideas. This, of course, opened the floodgates. One prominent law professor wrote that the president had betrayed marginalized students, and within minutes, the guy was basically fired for not having issued an apology abject enough for having someone who disagreed. As y'all know, I'm not a Milo fan. But the fact is, free speech is free speech. And this is ridiculous. Tonight, as we just saw, the administration announced that they would be willing to arrest me if I took 2 steps forward, not even to speak. If I was even in the audience for Christina's speech, they would arrest me. This is not America. This is Soviet-style bullshit. You don't get This isn't justice, of course, because justice means that your individual actions have individual consequences. This is social justice. Social justice, by the way, is an oxymoron, and it is for morons. Social justice is the idea. Social justice is the idea that if you are guilty, you might still be treated as innocent because of your race. That if you do something wrong in life, we can excuse that depending on your color or your sex or your sexual orientation. Social justice says that your group identity relieves you of individual responsibility. And hardcore leftists like to call themselves social justice warriors because they think that individual justice, that being treated decently as an individual, treating others decently as an individual, that is racist, sexist, bigoted, homophobic. They think that we should be held responsible not for our actions, but for the group to which we belong. Now, in normal parlance, we call this racist. In normal parlance, we call this sexist, treating people not based on who they are as individuals and what they do, but based on their group identity. Race doesn't mean anything. Sex doesn't mean anything when it comes to whether you're a good person or a bad person. But social justice warriors, they say that that standard is just too terrible, it's just too insulting. Social groups must be treated as superior to individuals. Okay, now the problem with this, of course, is that it's racist, but the question is why the left believes in this sort of stuff. Why does the left believe in what is something that is inherently unfair, something that is inherently racist and sexist and bigoted? Why? And the answer is because the left believes that every person in the world should finish up in the same place. They believe in equal outcomes. They believe that no matter how you're treated, no matter what your upbringing, no matter how you act, everybody should end up in the same place. So if you have two people in a room, one rich, one poor, the rich person must have stolen from the poor person because equality of outcome has not been achieved. And the same thing holds true for groups. If you have a group of black people and a group of white people, then equality has not been achieved unless the black people and the white people are of equal status economically, of equal status in society. Equality of outcome is the only thing that matters. And the problem is that individual justice means that some people are not going to finish in the same place as others. Some people are going to take actions that are not beneficial. Some people are going to do stupid things. Some people are going to do smart things. So how does the left solve that conundrum of individual justice? How do they solve the basic truth? How do they make way for the basic truth that some people do smart things and some people do stupid things, and that's what really causes inequality in a free country? They say the real reason that some people underachieve is, of course, because of white privilege. Right? Social justice warriors think the only thing that matters in the world is white privilege. It's a bunch of white evil people, and those white evil people are going to take advantage of you. The system was built by all these white evil people for the benefit of their own kind. That's the basic idea here. White privilege is inherent in everything. We have to tear down white privilege. And this is a very seductive idea, of course. The campus left gives people a feeling of virtue. It makes them feel virtuous by counting them members of victimized identity groups. So if you don't do well in life, then it's not because you made bad choices. It's not because even of your individual circumstance. It's because America as a country has put you down because you are not one of these privileged white males. Which means the bad guys in this whole narrative are, of course, the privileged white males, right? The white, heterosexual, cisgender males. We are the bad guys. We are the villains here. Now, the good news for the white, heterosexual, cisgender males is there's an easy way to get out of this. And that is to just repent. Just admit that everything you did in your life, everything the founders did, everything that all the white people did ever, all of that was designed so that you could benefit now, and all of your successes and your parents' successes, those weren't due to great decisions, and people's non-success isn't based on bad decisions. All of this is just based on you, and if you just repent and admit that you've never done anything good in your life, and that the system is built for your benefit, then they say you're an okay person, which is just wonderful. Okay? Now, before we go further, I do want to note something, right? It is true, of course, that black people and other minorities, but particularly black people, have suffered historic discrimination in the United States. That's inarguably true. It's even true that some people are likely suffering the effects of historic discrimination, the after effects under Jim Crow. But that doesn't mean black people right now are suffering institutional discrimination. It doesn't mean that. Okay, it turns out that in the world, you're born into circumstances beyond your control. Some of us are born rich. Some of us are born poor. Some of us are born smart. Some of us are born DePaul administrators. Right? You cannot fix where you start in life, and we can't fix where you finish in life. That is all beyond our control. The only thing we can control is making sure that your rights are not violated. And it turns out that America is a free and open country where white privilege is not what makes people successful or not successful. Decision privilege is what makes people successful or not successful. What you do as an individual is going to define whether you have a good life or not in the United States of America. What you decide to do is going to decide whether your kids succeed or fail in America. Not some white guy out in the sticks somewhere who's dreaming about how he's going to ruin your life. It turns out that in America, most people don't give a crap that much. Okay, nobody is saying that black guy in the inner city, I'm sitting around my dinner table at night thinking, how do I keep that black guy in the inner city down? Nobody is doing that. The number of people who are doing that is minuscule or zero. The actual privilege that exists in any free country is the privilege of decision. So, if you want to know why there is disproportionate poverty in the black community, the most obvious reason there's disproportionate poverty in the black community is because there's disproportionate single motherhood in the black community. And that has nothing to do with race. That has to do with bad decisions. The poverty rate among white single-parent families, white single-mother families, is 22%. The poverty rate among black two-parent families is 7%. What happened to the white privilege? Did it just disappear? Did the white people decide that everything was okay now and so black two-parent families were all right? Or does it turn out that if you have one parent in the home, it makes it a lot harder to thrive in the workplace, it makes it a lot harder to thrive in raising your child? Right, here's another privilege, the not committing crimes privilege. Everybody keeps talking about white privilege is the reason why there are so many black people in jail. No, black people are committing a disproportionate share of crimes. That's the reason there are a lot of black people in jail. If you don't want to go to prison, as I just found out, all you have to do is not violate the law. Right? If you don't want to go to jail for murder, the easiest way to do that is to not murder people. And the statistics bear this out. As early as 1994, the DOJ surveyed felony cases across the country's 75 largest urban areas, found lower felony prosecution rates for blacks than for whites. In 2015, the DOJ analyzed the Philly Police Department. They found white officers were less likely to shoot black suspects than black or Hispanic officers. There's a survey in July 2016 from a Harvard professor named Roland Fryer, front page of the New York Times. He surveyed 1,000 police shootings. He found black suspects are shot less often than white suspects in comparable situations. Fryer, by the way, is black. How about stop and frisk? That's racist, right? That's obviously white privilege, except for the fact that stop and frisk statistically under-targeted minorities in New York City. Between January and June 2008, literally 98% of all gun assailants in New York City were black or Hispanic. The number of people pulled over for stop and frisk in that same period who were black or Hispanic was 85%. How about pulling people over for speeding, right? This is white privilege, speeding while black, right? The driving while black. Well, back in the early 90s, the New Jersey State Police were targeted. They were supposed to be responsible for this sort of racial profiling. It turned out the New Jersey State Police were pulling over black people 23% of the time for speeding. Only one problem, 25% of the speeders in the state of New Jersey were actually black. How about sentencing disparities, right? You keep hearing President Obama talk about the criminal justice system is so racist, and look at the sentencing disparities between cocaine and various other drugs, between crack and powder, which typically is the one they use. Well, the fact is, the reason that crack cocaine is penalized more than powder cocaine is because black legislators in the inner cities were sick of watching crack ravage their cities. It's more addictive, it's easier to distribute, and actually the penalty for crack cocaine and crystal meth, which is largely a white crime, is exactly the same in federal law. But all of this is white privilege, right? All of the inequality that springs from bad behavior, that is white privilege, all of it. When Baltimore riots, and it's largely black, right? It's a majority black town with a majority black police force, and a black police chief, and a black attorney general, and a black president, and and 9 out of 15 members of the city council are black, and all 15 are Democrats. When that city riots because a black guy is killed in the custody of black police officers, that's white privilege. Everything is white privilege. Everything is white privilege. And if we're going to talk about privilege, really, we ought to be talking about the really nefarious people. The really nefarious people who are privileged in the United States. I'm talking, of course, about the nefarious Asians. Right? Because the nefarious Asians are the ones who actually make more money on average than white folks. They get into better colleges on average than white folks. And that makes sense because, after all, the system was rigged for the benefit of Asian people. Right? But this is why the Asian founders created an Asian constitution on behalf of the Asian people, which is why the Constitution is written in Korean. White privilege is just a way to tell you to shut up. It's a way to say that your perspective doesn't matter because of the color of your skin. It is baseline racism. It is baseline racism. Okay, so the left can't actually make the argument that the system is responsible for all of the inequality in society. So next, they come up with a different argument. And that argument is that we all have to be equal in terms of feelings. All of our